Meaghan Murphy is known for her high energy, upbeat personality and yay lifestyle. She's a longtime magazine editor, co-host of Off the Gram podcast, and on-air TV personality. She's currently the editor-in-chief at Women's Day magazine. She's married to her younger brother's best friend. They have 3 children together, a labradoodle, and she's a certified personal trainer and breast cancer previvor. And if she's not getting her 10,000 steps in, she's busy decorating for all of the holidays and coming up with MacGyver-style life hacks. She is known for being a happiness hacker. The strategies in her book, Your Fully Charged Life, will teach you to live a more optimistic and joyful life. So let's welcome Meaghan to the show. Meaghan, I'm so excited to have you on the podcast. I was in my 3rd trimester. It was the week I was being told that I couldn't fly again, and we met in New York, and I felt like we were kindred spirits. And I felt your energy the minute I walked into the room, and it's like everyone else kind of evaporated, and I could have just sat there and talked to you for hours. So I had to have you on the podcast and sort of share your joy and your life experience with so many other moms who are in the trenches and working moms. And we'll dive in also to your decision to have a proactive double mastectomy based on genetics and how that plays into your resilience in life and showing up for your family and your friends. So first of all, I just want to start with gratitude because I know that's your thing. And thank you for being here and spending time with us because as we'll all soon learn, saying no is part of your plan too. So thanks for being here and saying yes.
Yay! Oh, I'm
so for people that don't know you, can you talk a little bit about what you do, what your background is, and kind of like where you are in life?
So I am a longtime magazine editor. I started my magazine career when I was 18 years old. I was at YM. I was one of the founding editors of Teen People. I spent 9 years at Self Magazine. I was at Cosmopolitan. I was at Good Housekeeping. I'm currently the editor-in-chief of Women's Day magazine. So I'm a long time service journalist who has a degree in theater and acting. So I was also a host on MTV in the 90s, did a lot of commercials and off-Broadway. It's probably why I'm on so much morning television now. I still always get that bug to perform. I love an audience. I love a camera. I'm an evangelist for like information that I love. If I love something, I feel like everyone needs to know about it and they need to have it immediately. Also, I'm also the author of Your Fully Charged Life. And a mother of 3. That's the most important job that I never want to leave out.
Oh, and it feels like you're fully charged. Like your fingers might actually be in the light socket right now.
I have to say, yes, I have trained to operate at full battery. And it feels really, really good to live this way.
So let's just go there because I'm in the thick of toddlerhood. I have a 4-month-old who I think was up twice in the middle of the night last night. I was doing the lunches, throwing kids in the car, doing handsome hair is what we call it, with like chasing people with the spray and the comb, and then jumping back into like the work side of life. And we all want that kind of energy. We all want that kind of zest for life, that joy for life, that curiosity. Like, how do you keep cultivating that in your life and as your career progresses and as your kids get older?
So I like to say I trained to live this way, the same way I trained in the gym to see my abs again after 3 kids, or train my biceps to get stronger to be able to do push-ups. I trained to live with more optimism and joy. And I like to talk about the journey because I wasn't born this way. I was nicknamed Neggy Meggy as a kid. I had some really, really difficult teen years. I mean, I wore a Grumpy necklace with Grumpy the Dwarf because that was actually my mascot. Like, one of my hobbies was literally sitting on the curb and sticking my tongue out at people. Like, I was a really, really, I was tough. I was tough. I had a really tumultuous teen years. I wound up with like a raging eating disorder, 3 hospitalizations. I lost my best friend my sophomore year of high school, and I absolutely spiraled. And it wasn't until years later, many hospitalizations, really learning to self-medicate by starving myself. Like, I can now look back at that. My feelings were so big and so swirling. I'm very empathic, and I didn't know how to quiet all the chaos. And so I stopped eating, and I became I like to say a raging anorexic. Was very, very ill. And it took me a long time to climb back from that, especially after losing my best friend who was a tandem anorexic. But ultimately, through therapy, inpatient, outpatient, talk therapy, and doing a lot of work and making my mess my message and beginning to talk about those struggles and give a voice to that pain and a voice to that journey, I began to heal. And I began to live differently. And it was later that I was at Cosmopolitan magazine, of all places, and I was sort of tasked with this assignment of writing about the 7 secrets of happiness. And if people don't know magazines, it's sort of like, this is the cover line that we think we're going to sell. So like, come up with the story. We kind of sometimes reverse engineer. Yeah. And I like remember rolling my eyes and being like, the 7 secrets of happiness. Like, what the hell? But in that time, I was in my 20s. I'm no longer in my 20s. So this was a long time ago. It wasn't like you could just search things up. Like I had to do some digging. I had to do some research. And in that process, I discovered the work of Dr. Martin Seligman, who's the forefather of positive psychology, if anyone doesn't know that. And I just thought this was so brilliant. For like the first time in the late 90s, he looked at the field of psychology and said, what if we look at what's right with people and how to emulate those characteristics versus looking at what's wrong with people and trying to fix it? And for whatever reason, that clicked with me. And I really thought his perma theory of wellness, the P for positive emotions, the E for engagement, the R for relationships, the M for meaning, and the A for accomplishments. That's what he said, what all happy people had in common, right? They had full buckets in these areas. Well, what if I started filling those buckets? How would that change the way I was approaching the world? How would that change the way I was living? And for me, I began that process. The positive emotions, gratitude's a big piece of that. What if I had an attitude of gratitude? What if I figured out how to fun filter a gratitude practice so that I could actually adopt it and practice on a regular basis? What if I really thought hard about my relationships, not just, whoever I was dating or my parents, but like, what if I changed the way I interact with strangers and let that be a spark and let that engagement and those interactions fuel me? And so I started to do this and I started to change the way I interacted with the world and change the way I feel. And I began to live with more optimism, more joy, and more energy. And it was sort of selfish for a very long time. But as my father was dying, he said to me, like, you've learned to live differently and you need to share your secret. And I said, oh, I'm going to write a book, Dad. And in his chemo chair, and sometimes I get choked up when I talk about it. But I said, I'm going to do it. I'm going to write a book. And sure enough, I did.
Oh, what a beautiful homage to a butterfly transition that your dad saw in you, that he probably always knew was like a part of who you are, that all of those big emotions and feelings could be reverberated out into the world as a positive message for the rest of us. I mean, that's the greatest gift you could have given your parent. Because what if that was you and your child was like, in the name of your life and how you've raised me, I will put forth this goodness into the world. Like I have full body chills right now. It's what a traumatic thing to have to lose your dad at a young age with young kids, but to give the world and his memory this gift is beautiful, Meaghan. And we're so
lucky. I love that I cry about it because I've been doing all this really interesting resilience research now. And this is something I want to share because I think it's so powerful that when we actually tell our stories and we give them a beginning and a middle of an end, it makes it a journey versus something that happened to us. And it's such a beautiful way to have more active coping skills. So just by me saying out loud right now, I went through this hard thing, but look how I came out the other side. I'm actually building my own resilience muscles. And it's why it brings me to tears because it feels so profound. And I am so absolutely grateful that I've been able to go on this journey and to honor my father's legacy in that way.
And thank you for pointing that out because it's actually something that we see when I'm interviewing people like Tina Bryson from The Whole Brain Child, the name it to tame it, but even that the resilience is that full story that she tells, her parents. I am lucky to be a friend of hers and have her on speed dial. But, I can think of an example like Sebastian just had stitches in his eye. And now he literally just like barely fell down yesterday and was like, am I going to urgent care? And I was like, oh shoot, I got to do that thing. We got to like talk about it, draw the picture, what happened, you're fully healed now, you were so brave. Like because in his head, there is no complete story there. There's no beginning, middle, and an end, and it's over. This is an open-ended thing where he thinks now every time he gets hurt, he's going to urgent care, which is scary, right? There's no completion there. And what I also think is really beautiful is that you did cry. Like, one of my favorite things to do, and Chris is like, oh God, is she going to cry? But it's when we hold it all in, it's like we're so numbed out, we don't feel anything. And then we look for outlets like you did when you were younger, like controlling your food. Can you talk a little bit about your eating disorder? It's very prevalent right now, and I think, and we see the numbers growing in teens and adolescents. And um, what do you think the reasoning is for that, being someone who is, I guess, a survivor of that as well?
I feel so grateful that I went through that earlier in my life because I do see even adult mom friends and whatnot struggling with it now. And it breaks my heart because it's a really awful way to live. My entire world was consumed by what I wasn't going to consume.
Yeah.
Every waking thought was about what I was not going to eat, how I was going to avoid meals. And it was incredibly debilitating. I mean, I crashed my car. I passed out on a soccer field. Like, I was a disaster. But it was because I didn't have the tools to be upset, to let those emotions out. I don't bottle anything now, right? Like, I can remember even in second grade being like, don't cry. Why are you so mad? Why are you so happy? Why are you so sad? Like, always having to label these emotions and to point out these emotions and put my emotions under the microscope. And it
Mhm.
was to the point where I had no idea that's what I was doing when I was doing it. But like, I didn't want to feel. I didn't want anybody to talk about what I was feeling, what I was not feeling, how big my emotions were, how not big enough they were, how not appropriate. I was like, I just want to be numb. I
Yeah.
absolutely just want to be numb. And unfortunately, it was something that my friend and I wound up engaging in together. I mean, it was like we would exercise hours and hours on end to the point we were like kicked out of Exercise Woman because you can't take 17 step classes in a day.
Mhm.
And it was like exercise was punishment.
Mhm.
All of it was came from this like negative, awful place. Now, movement is medicine for me. Like, I get to move my body. I'm so grateful that I've learned to treat my body with grace, and to be able to do things that fuel me and make me feel better. I have a 13-year-old daughter, and it's really scary when you hear these young women say, I hate my thighs, I hate my body, or compare their bodies to each other. And it's something that I'm really struggling to navigate because obviously it's very much a trigger for me. The last thing on the planet I want is my 13-year-old daughter to suffer the way I suffered and to have to go on that journey. And I think the thing for me is just mirroring. I think of myself as a mom mirror, and what healthy behaviors and healthy body image can I project so that I'm showing her, even if I can't tell her there's a better way to do this. And so, like, you will never ever ever hear me talk about what my body can't do or what I don't like about my body. I mean, I feel so grateful every day that my body can run a marathon, that can make three babies, that can heal from a double mastectomy. Like, all of these wonderful, beautiful things that my body gets to do. And that's what I'm always trying to teach my children is like, food is fuel, food is medicine, movement is therapy, mind and body. We do these things so we can be strong, mind and body. And how do we treat each other in our own bodies the way, you don't talk to your friend that way. Why are you talking about your own body that way?
Right.
But it's hard. It is scary, and it's hard because I've seen how bad it can get.
Right. Well, you talk a lot about taking hardships and going and shifting from haves to have tos to get tos. So can we talk about how that you infuse that in your family's everyday life so that you are that mom mirror for your kids?
Sure. I mean, so I like kind of live the principles of my book, and my kids are old enough now. They're like, yeah, we know, mom. We know. We're grateful. We're finding the yay in the day. We get it. I mean, because I live this, right? You can't preach it if you don't live it. And, we definitely, we live fully charged, and like, there's certainly eye rolling that happens, but a lot of what I try to do is fun filter many of these strategies, right? So, like, my kids are not going to keep a gratitude journal. Like, they've got enough math homework. Like, they're not going to sit down and necessarily write what they're grateful for.
Right.
But it is an absolutely crucial part of their day. And they practice gratitude every day without even always knowing it.
Yeah.
It is sometimes as simple as me doing the what's your yay today before bed. So I'm sneaking it in. Well, okay, we're pausing to appreciate something that was good in the day. I might not call it gratitude. I might not call it a gratitude practice. I might absolutely be tricking them into pausing to appreciate what was good about the day.
Mhm.
And they do it with me, and they build those muscles, and they begin to train those neural pathways, and they begin to see the good in every day and to appreciate it. But they might not call it that. But then I'll go to back to school night, and I'll see that my son has created gratitude rings, and he has this little binder of things he's grateful for, and I'm like,
That's amazing.
it's
I
it's
mean, it's funny. I laugh a little bit because, you can't preach it if you don't live it. And I'm over here like, my kids are like, "Does that have protein in it?" And I'm like, you better believe it does, bud. That's good stuff." Like and they're 4.5 and 2.5. And it's like, they'll tell me what has fiber in it or what is like green or deep in color. And like, "Mom, we got color." Bash was like making a smoothie this morning. He forgot the liquid, so it sounded like he put a 2x4 in the Vitamix. And I was like, "Chris, get the baby." And I like we're sprinting down the stairs, and he's like, "I'm making a Fab Four smoothie, Mom." I'm like, "Oh," he's like, "I have all the four things." I was like, "You don't have the liquid. That's my bad, bud. I need to add five for you." Like, but it's like
Oh,
it's so amazing because as a mom, you don't think it's working. And then you see that ring of, the gratitude rings, and you're like, "Okay, this is working." Like it's osmosis. It's like they're living in it. And so they're seeing that as a part of their life. And I mean, it's shown in research over and over and over again. We learn so much from our parents, not about what they say, but really how they show up and what they do. And it almost gives this pressure to parents, like, we need to heal all our traumas. We need to work on ourselves. And when am I going to be fully healed? Am I sort of broken? And everyone is. It's just kind of accepting that. And so I'm curious how open you've been with your daughter about your eating disorder growing up, or with all your kids. Like, is that something that you're sharing with them, or is there a time when you think it would be something?
yeah. I mean, I like to say, like, you need some cracks. That's how the light gets in, right? And I am not afraid to show my kids the cracks. And I think that I learned this with kids is that as long as they see you recover or have strategies to recover from hard things, you can't ignore the hard things. They need to know that life isn't always, sunshine and rainbows. Bad things happen, but guess what? We have tools and strategies and things in place to heal, to get better, to get stronger. So I'm really, really open with my children. And sometimes my husband is like, "Oh my God, why did you share that? They don't need to know that." And
Yeah.
I'm like, I kind of think they do. I kind of think they do. Like, I don't want to pretend that I'm perfect, and I don't want to pretend that I didn't struggle and that I don't struggle.
Mm.
And that my kids do. They see me cry, but they also see me wipe the tears and smile on the other side. And I think that is absolutely the most important thing. Apologize. Like, own it when you're wrong. Show them that you make mistakes. Show them that things hurt,
Mm.
but also that the key is that you will bounce back, because at the end of the day, you still need to be that force of security and safety and comfort for your kids. So it's not like, even when after my father died and I was on the hot mess express, I absolutely did not hide those tears, but I also showed them how to come out the other side. Okay, mommy is really hurting today. I'm going to go for a walk with my girlfriend. And when I come back, mommy's going to be mommy's going to be stronger. But like, I need to do this. I need to go talk with my friend and get some fresh air and walk right now to process some of this hard stuff because it really hurts. And we do a lot of that, right? We just do a lot of that. And with my daughter, I mean, like, I've gone so far as to say, hey, listen, like, I had an eating disorder. I struggled with food. So, like, I want to have these conversations with you. Like, if your pants don't fit today and that bothers you, let's talk it through. Right. Because, like, when I was a kid, if my clothes didn't fit, that was upsetting to me. If that's upsetting to you, I'm here for you. I'm here to listen. And
Right.
do you want me to listen or do you want me to help solve that problem? A good friend of mine who does the Big Life Journal, brilliant, um, gave me that question to pose to teenagers. And I find it really effective with older kids of like, hey, listen, do you want me to listen to you right now? Or do you want to help me problem solve? Because I'm here for either. Like, if you want to talk it through, I might have some advice or some strategies. If not, I've just got my listening ears on and like, like, tell me what's going on. Because again, it's that voicing. When we can say out loud what we're struggling with, it's so much more productive than stewing. We need to do, we can't stew. So how can I give a voice to what's hard?
Right. And it, I think, is just such a great tool right there for parents and also for people in relationships, because it happens in husbands and wives as well, like where they want to jump in and fix and you feel like they're not listening. And I think the worst part would be if, I can think about growing up and it's all out of like love. But if something, if my pants didn't fit me, my mom always used to say, don't worry, you grow out and then you grow up. You look so cute, honey. And it would be like kind of dismissing. And she didn't think that, anything of it. She just thought I was beautiful. And looking back, like, I was a beautiful little girl and I was never like really struggling, but I felt at certain points like I was struggling. I can't imagine having those feelings, and they feel soul crushing at that age, to then have social media on top of that, or not just, your YM magazine or Cosmo or whatever it is. You're like, people are comparing themselves and they have a personal brand starting at a certain age. And knowing that, like, was there a certain age where you let your kids have social media, or is there a way that you navigate that with your kids?
So we were late to the social media party. My boys don't have any of that. My 10-year-old has an Apple Watch so that he can call me if there's an emergency at practice or at school. Like, it's in school mode all day, but
Mhm.
my boys walk to school and walk home. So, like, to not be able to communicate at all is really scary.
Yeah.
Um, so my older son now is in 6th grade and he got a phone, and he doesn't care about it. It's really like, it's in his bag at soccer practice. It's in his bag at lacrosse. It's in his bag after school because he then goes and picks up his brother at elementary school and walks home. He doesn't value the phone at all. It's not even a part of his world. He doesn't have social media. He doesn't have any apps or anything. It's strictly a communication device,
Right.
and I love that.
Yeah.
My daughter is now 8th grade,
Yeah.
and she now has social media,
Yeah.
and that is really challenging.
Yeah.
And we have very honest conversations with it. And like, listen, I'm active on social media, so it's not like I can vilify the platform.
Yeah.
Um, but what I've had conversations with her about is like, listen, if you're scrolling Instagram and you feel a certain way about something, we need to pay attention to that. If you see this and you feel less than, if you see something and you're comparing yourself, we need to navigate that.
Mhm.
Why is it making you feel this way? Do you feel like, jealous if someone's on vacation because you haven't been on vacation in a while? Maybe you need to book a trip. Maybe we need to plan something. Like, or are you looking at this person and feeling like you weren't invited? Well, then you need to cultivate a stronger friend group. Like, I sort of said to her, like, let's use it as a tool. If you're reacting a certain way, let's deal with that reaction because we can't control other people, but we can control what we're reacting to. And we can use it as sort of this litmus test for what we might need to turn inward and work on.
Right. It's what I've loved about you since the minute I met you is you head straight into the challenge. It is not, there's zero avoidance happening, and it's naming what's going on. It's asking those hard questions and coming out really joyful on the other end. And I know you touched on PERMA, positive emotion, engagement, relationships, meaning, and accomplishment, and how that changed your life. But I kind of really want to unpack that because this is something you're so passionate about. It's made such a big shift in your life. And I think obviously when we are not going into challenges straight ahead and we're not able to move through them, that I don't know that that positive emotion can really be there because we are clouded or numbed out by whatever we're avoiding. So can you break down how you look at each of these buckets and make sure that you're filling them to the top?
Well, and first I want to thank Shonda Rhimes because I interviewed Shonda Rhimes, who is the creator of Grey's Anatomy, and she's a brilliant woman. And I was interviewing her, and she said something that really clicked for me. And she said, always have the hard conversation, have it right away, dive right in, because you waste too much energy, too much bandwidth worrying about having that conversation or not having that conversation, or what you would say or what you wouldn't say. Just say the thing. And after interviewing her, I was having like a mom drama. My daughter wasn't invited to a birthday party. She was home crying. I was really upset. I interviewed Shonda and I called that mom and I said, I don't get it. Like, everyone in Girl Scouts was invited to the party, but Charlie, like, I got a kid crying here. Like, can we talk about this? And she was like, oh, no, like, you didn't get the email, or I had your wrong email. And like, we cleared it up like this versus me spending the rest of the school year hating on this mom who didn't invite my daughter, the only one in the class of the Girl Scouts, to the party. And to this day, that woman and I are good friends because I immediately just tackled the hard stuff. And so that has been, that little piece of advice from Shonda has changed everything for me. But then let's get into PERMA. So,
Well, I have to say right there, like, also John Deloney, if you know who that is, he wrote The Non-Anxious Life. I just interviewed him too. And one of the things that really struck me was he said, you have to live in reality. You have to know what the reality is. And right there, like, if she had your wrong email or whatever, you're sitting there ruminating, and then it's the stories you're telling yourself. And that goes to Brene Brown being like, well, the story I'm telling myself right now is that you didn't invite Charlie because you have something against me and Charlie. And like, we're living in this very scarcity, self-defensive, anxious life versus like the reality of, look, this mom's probably busy. Maybe she has a lot going on. She just took the emails she had, threw them, and Charlie didn't get the invite and it wasn't purposeful.
exactly. Like, that is just like, so have those tough conversations, just have them. Like, don't let the gremlins multiply in your brain. Like, have, and I find it so empowering now. I'm like, ooh, what hard conversation do I get to have today? I love it. It's
Yeah.
become like, it's become amazing.
Well, you clear your brain to
Yeah,
have these positive emotions. Okay, PERMA. Do it.
joy. There's so much room for joy.
Yeah.
But I would say the reason, I like to call him Marty sometimes. I've never met him, but I call Dr. Seligman Marty.
Okay.
I think why it clicked for me because happiness seems so elusive. Like, I didn't understand why people were happy. What the like, don't worry, be happy. These bullshit song, and like, we did a scarf dance to it in 8th grade, and I'm like, this is such bullshit. Like, I was like, I don't get happiness.
Yeah.
And this made it seem tangible to me.
Mhm.
You didn't have to like be happy. Oh, wait a second. You could do things that made you happier. I'm action oriented, right? Like, I want to know what I can do. I don't want to just sit back and be happy. That
Right.
seemed, it didn't make any sense to me.
Mhm.
But by saying what makes people thrive, what makes people more likely to be happy
Mhm.
are these things, I'm like, ding, 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 ding. Okay. How do I cultivate more of those things in my life? I mean, it was something as simple like the A in accomplishment, right? Like, we all need a sense of accomplishment. Well, yeah, in school you get grades and you get A pluses, and you maybe you win a medal at a soccer tournament. Well, as grown-ups, we don't necessarily get a lot of that. And I
Mhm.
was talking to my sister, who's the mother of 4, and she's like, yeah, there's no awards or accolades, or I tirelessly raised four boys, and I haven't gotten an ounce of praise or an accolade and whatever. And I'm like, oh my goodness, we all need to feel a sense of accomplishment. And like, if you can't get a trophy and you can't get a gold star, how do we do that for each other? How do I do that for my sister? Is it as simple as a text of like, you're a good mom. You're doing a good job today. Like, you're an amazing friend. Like, when you did this for me, like, virtual high five, because that really made me feel good. Thank you. Right? We want to feel like we've accomplished something, that we're appreciated. And like, just knowing that, like, oh my gosh, if I can have these sense of accomplishments in my life, I'm going to be happier.
Mm-hmm.
Like, meaning, like, it's as simple as when I was going through my double mastectomy, like, what meaning can I attach to this, right? Like, I'm so grateful that I get to proactively do this, and I'm not going to have to go through chemo and radiation, and I'm going to be better able to deal with it than my mother was, going into it healthy. But like, what meaning can I attach to this? Okay, well, I get to be a voice for the CHEK2 mutation, right? I get to raise awareness around gene testing and genetic testing, and I get to, all of these things made it more meaningful for me. Like, I'm going to get to be a megaphone for proactive double mastectomies and being able to do this, right? What can we attach meaning to? Because
Right.
we're going to thrive if everything has some sense of purpose, some sense of meaning. Those relationships, right? Like, just knowing that putting a little energy into those relationships is going to help us flourish. And for me, understanding, and it really shined a spotlight on it even during the pandemic, like, when I was craving connection and craving relationships so deeply, and I would sit on my porch just to talk to the UPS man, because seeing Anthony gave me a spark, right? And knowing the science behind that allows me to create more of that in my life, to understand that I need connection, that I need to go to the grocery store and use the cashier's name tag as a gift and say, hey, Mike, how's it going today? Spark, 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 spark. We need each other. Other
Yeah.
people are always the answer, right? We need each other. So understanding that there was science behind that, it was like, oh my gosh, I can create more of that. Positive emotions, there's a lot of stuff in there. There's gratitude, there's zest, there are all of these things. I mean, simply focusing on gratitude and fun filtering gratitude for me, like, I'm so grounded in gratitude. I was walking with my girlfriend today and I'm like, I am so grateful to be grateful. Like, there was some yucky friend dynamics going on, and I was like, I don't even care. Like, I'm so unfazed by it. I don't experience FOMO anymore because I feel so happy and fulfilled what is already in my life. Holy shit. It took me 48 years to get here, but wow, I'm unfazed. I don't care what you have. I'm happy for you, but what I have is already enough. So I don't look at you and feel anything but like, amazing. I can celebrate you because I'm celebrating myself too.
So profound. That enoughness comes from celebrating yourself.
Yeah.
And how are you? It sounds like you do a lot of walking and thinking. You're like,
So it's funny.
but for some people, they have, a 17-minute meditation practice. They have their 60-minute yoga practice. They do this, they do their gratitude journaling there. And being that you had a background in journalism and had to come up with all of these lists of to-dos we had to do for self-care for years and years and years, how you're not like a squirrel or a pinball bouncing around to everything that like is a practice that you could include in your daily routine. Like how do you really do it? Like, what does it really look like to be so grounded in gratitude and to find the yay? I mean, obviously with your kids, you're kind of like sneaking it in. We do high, low buffalo, which is like
Yep.
sort of the same sort of a thing. And now my kids are like, what's your high at dinner? I'm like, oh yeah, let's do that.
We do a happiness sandwich too. Good, bad, good.
There you go.
So I think about it this way, like, and so this is how my book works. I think of it as a toolkit, right? I'm going to give you all of these tools, and some days you're going to need a hammer, and some days you're going to need a wrench, and some days you're going to need gratitude, and some days you're going to need the power of awe, and some days you're just going to dive into the health chart, right? So my mission is to absolutely give people science-backed strategies that could work, and they could work for you, and they could work for you today, and they could work for you in 6 months. And the way I think about this is it's always changing and evolving, right? So yes, I walk like Forrest Gump now, but that's something I discovered after my double mastectomy. I was a marathon runner. I was a very competitive athlete. I've been a certified trainer for 20 years. I was the fitness director of Self Magazine. I love exercise. I love it, love it, love it. I was a competitive soccer player. But after my double mastectomy, I had to relearn my body. And I needed to relearn my body and what worked for it. I'm also hitting perimenopause. I'm 48 years old. So I'm had to relearn my body. And I've learned that, you know what really feels good for me right now is mind, body, and soul are these long walks. And I have a couple different types of walks. So I have a walkie talkie, and that is a connection walk. That's where I lean into relationships. And I understand, like, I want to connect with somebody. Maybe I'm going to call somebody from high school and catch up over the course of an hour. Maybe I'm going to walk with my girlfriend in real life, but it's a walkie talkie. It's about connection. Then I have learning walks where there's just something I really, really want to learn. I might listen to one of your podcasts and get everything I need to know about fasting because I'm currently fascinated with fasting. And
Yeah.
I might learn that, oh my gosh, maybe I need to take one day off and add one day of 17-hour fast, right? But I have a learning walk. What do I need to learn today? Maybe I'm listening to the daily to catch up on the news, but I have a learning walk. I have a pure entertainment walk. There are some days where I walk and I'm like listening to like a show or music or a true crime podcast because I just want to be entertained. That's a type of walk. But I'm in the fresh air. I'm getting all of those benefits of being outside. I'm moving my body, and some days it is quiet, and some days I'm just walking, and I'm just walking for 60 minutes, and I'm taking it all in, and I'm really harnessing the power of awe. I'm noticing my world. I'm noticing what's around me. I'm noticing the trees. I'm listening, right? Like it's these different types of walks. But I was a marathon runner who ran like 6-minute miles. If you would have told me that I would be like Forrest Gump doing all these different types of walk, I would have laughed in your face. But
Mhm.
it's what I need right now. So a lot of it is knowing these tools exist and then reaching for them when your body like I've gotten really I know myself. I know myself so intimately. I listen to myself, like warts and all. I don't always like what I hear, but I'm listening and I'm paying attention and I'm doing what feels right for me.
I think that is a beautiful example of having a filter when the world is constantly telling you there's all these things that you need to do is that break to say like that's all great and that's a tool, but what do I need right now?
Yep.
And I want to circle back to what you needed right now when you found out that you had the check 2 gene. I'd like for you to explain what the check 2 gene is because BRCA genes are obviously very popular and popularized also by Angelina Jolie. I was working in cancer and genetics when her prophylactic mastectomy happened. I worked directly with that oncological surgeon, actually. That was like my
Wow.
past life. I was there when the news was in Beverly Hills at her office. Like it was a whole thing, but everyone associates it with the BRCA genes.
Absolutely. And that's part of my purpose, right? Like I get to be a megaphone for this other lesser known gene. So my mom had breast cancer twice. I lost my father to pancreatic cancer. Legitimately, every woman on my mom's side of the family has had breast cancer or is currently battling breast cancer. I had incredibly dense breasts. I was monitoring my breast health, you know, I was really on top of it. There was the mammograms, then a sonogram, then an MRI. I wound up having a lump. I had a biopsy. And, like I've been through some serious cancer stuff. And so, like that Thursday where I had the biopsy to wait till that Monday or Tuesday to find out whether or not I had cancer was a lot for me. I had a lot of PTSD. My dad was gone in a matter of months, right? Stage 4 pancreatic cancer, just gone. Um,
So sad.
and my husband's mother had breast cancer. My husband lost his father at 50 to kidney cancer. Like I'm dealing with some really awful cancer in my family right now. And like that weekend of knowing like how, listen, I saw my mom battle breast cancer twice. I knew it was something I could handle, but it wasn't something I wanted to handle. I felt like I wasn't ready for that. Thank God it was benign. But at that point, my breast surgeon said to me, like, we need to know. I mean, every 3 to 6 months here, we're going through this. Like, what do we need to do? Like, let's see how proactive we need to be. And we did the genetic testing and sort of I had this CHEK2 mutation. So it's a change in your DNA, like the more known BRCA1 and BRCA2, that puts you at higher risk for breast cancer. Now, coupled with my previous scares, my dense breasts, my family history, when we met with the genetic counselor, my risk was really pretty high. And knowing what it's like to go through chemo and go through radiation, I kind of felt like I was in a place in my life where I could handle this surgery. I could handle the double mastectomy. I could handle the reconstruction. I was in a really healthy place. I was in a stable job with good insurance where it was all going to be covered. And my husband looked at me and he's just been beat up by cancer too. And he was like, I really want us to do this. And without hesitation, I scheduled my surgery and made it happen. It was a lot harder than I thought, both mentally and physically. I thought, like, I am so strong, mind and body. Like, I will be back on my feet in a week or 2 weeks. And that wasn't the case. And that was hard for me. And it was hard for me because how I self medicate is with movement and not being and I self medicate with routine. I self medicate with community, my dawn patrol, early morning workout, good vibe tribe. Like, that is a big piece of my mental wellness is all of that. And so I really had to figure out how to do this. And I really leaned into some new resilience research, which was really, really helpful to me. I love Dr. Charney and Dr. Southwick, who passed away, but they're leading resilience researchers, and they came up with a resilience prescription. And these are guys who know a lot about resilience. Like, Charney was shot by a former coworker as he's developing his resilience research. But a couple of the things that they taught me that really stuck out for me was, like, number one is to have a resilience role model. So through that process, I met a mom on a soccer field who had had the surgery a year prior, and she became this, like, proof, this evidence for me that someday I would be okay too. And that really got me through it. Even when my dad was dying, I had a resilience role model. I had met a woman at the gym whose father had died of pancreatic cancer 10 years prior. I mean, I was crying on the treadmill. She happened to be next to me and we connected, which is why I say cry your tears, people, because you don't know who you're going to connect with. That's how I met my resilience mentor the first time around. And it's just that proof. I call it the receipts, right? Like, someday I'm not going to hurt this bad. Someday I'm going to lift my arm over my head again. She's proof, right? So I developed that resilience role model, which was incredibly helpful for me. And I laughed about it. And I love this. Like, we don't lose our sense of humor when things are hard. Science says we still have a funny bone. And guess what? Laughter is still the best medicine. Holy crap. And when I was leaving surgery, my doctor said to me, okay, so pretend you're a T-Rex. Your arms stay at your side and you're going to be a T-Rex. I, like, ran with that. I mean, I laughed out loud in the moment and I ran with it. I got a cashmere T-Rex sweatshirt. I made T-Rex cookies. And I walked around doing the T-Rex shuffle, and finding that humor in it allowed me to be in control of this hardship. And it gave me more active coping skills, right? I could laugh at the fact that I couldn't raise my arms over my head because I'm a T-Rex. I empowered myself by laughing at it. I mean, there were so many of these beautiful things that I learned through this journey that were fully charged tools that were in my toolkit that maybe I wasn't relying on previously, but now I needed them.
And you said it, you took control of it. And I think that's, I mean, when you look at how you've lived your life, you live it fully charged. You live it energetically and with purpose. And you purposely went into this prophylactic double mastectomy to prevent the scares and the fears, and for your children not to see you go through chemo and radiation and all the symptoms and side effects that go through that come from that. But then also realizing in the moment that it was hard and that you did have tools to get through and be resilient, is showing them that they can get through that hard stuff too. But also recognizing and being honest and open about the fact that it wasn't a walk in the park. It's not a walk in the park, and it's not going to be a walk in the park for someone like you who is an athlete at heart and relies on all of these very active healing modalities to then be shut down. It's like an athlete that gets benched with an injury. Depression and anxiety rates skyrocket in those people because they don't even realize how much of their life and purpose and meaning and relationships and positive emotions, all their perma is wrapped up in what they do every day that they're not able to do. So thank you for sharing those, because I'd always known about laughter, and it's something that's come up for me. I remember when Sebastian was in the NICU and we had some really scary times where we didn't know what his diagnosis was going to be. And we talked about, Chris going back to the law firm and me quitting my job. And I remember pretty vividly, we were all kind of in the waiting room with my parents, and Chris looked at my dad and he was like, well, Steve, the good news is we'll all be under one roof soon. And it's like, of course, my parents didn't want me and my husband and our son, who, if it had gone that way, we would have probably really needed to rely on them. But to remember, we all laughed really hard about that. And then my mom being like, you're always welcome home, but it is like not the future.
Well, and the science too, like laughter is that hit of dopamine, right? So then it kind of fuels into that broaden and build theory, right? So that broadens our mind, and with an open mind, we're better able to do some reframing and all of that. So like laughter, truly, truly, I love a cliche because it's so damn true. It's the best medicine.
I love using laughter. My dad was a big tease. It's something that I like to bring in. Like if Sebastian's really upset and I try to make a joke and he's like, don't be laughing with me right now. He always says that, don't be laughing with me right now. And I'm like, I'm just trying to like lighten this up. It's not that big of a deal, but without like making him feel bad. How do you continue to bring that like levity and lightness in with your family? And how is it a part of your like daily life?
Fun is definitely one of my superpowers. We have a lot of fun. It's really interesting because now 13-year-olds, they just roll their eyes at you most of the time. So like I think she's laughing quietly behind my back, but our house is very light. And I think a big piece of that is sometimes just with the energy of music and impromptu dance parties. Like I am somebody who just deeply loves the energy of music and filling the house with that kind of like happiness and energy. I will say I have a 11-year-old and 10-year-old boy now, and God, farts are the funniest thing that ever happened to them now. We're in like the fart period. It's like it happens when they're little, and then like
I'm like, I'm in it too.
Like, why are you showing me your butt? Like, really? Like, this is coming back now. So we have some of those moments, but like we really do try to keep things light. I mean, I don't, and I think because I've had some of these life experiences, like I don't think anything is dire. I don't think anything is a big deal. I don't think that there's anything we can't get through or do. Like I don't make a big deal out of anything except exciting things like maybe s'mores, right? Like I'm not going to make a big deal about a math test. I'm not going to make a big deal about a bad grade. Like we really try to roll with things and like focus when we need to, but not awfulize or stress about all the things that, although I did hear this really important advice around 13-year-olds, because 13 is a really tough age. And you are supposed to treat their problems as important as they think they are. But the problems are sometimes like really silly. Like, oh my gosh, like I thought I was going to wear a sweater and I really think I should wear a sweatshirt because so-and-so thinks that's too fancy. And you're like, oh my gosh, let's talk about it. Right. And it's like,
oh, geez. Yeah. I'm not going to be ready for that.
It's a lot.
Wear what you want. We're out.
Yeah. The boys are definitely easier for me. But yeah, but treat their problems as important as they think they are. I'm learning that.
Well, it's interesting too, because what I think you're showing them is that they can get through anything when you're not making a big deal out of the math test, and you're not thinking like this math grade means that they're not going to get into college and they're not going to get a good job and they're not going to, like, that's, you have trust in the process, and you also have the reframing of knowing like real life happens. Like your mom had to have a double mastectomy. You lost your grandpa to pancreatic cancer. I know what life is really about, and that is our relationships and how we live every day and the gratitude that we have. And this little math test is not who you are. It's what happened.
Yes, I love it. That's
I mean,
so
that's you
important.
in a nutshell. Like, that's why I'm like, you're my mom role model, and how, and it's why I wanted to have you on the pod, just because I think so many times we get caught up in these little things being such a big deal. And I mean, you've given so many amazing tools, and you are the toolkit lady, but like so many amazing tools along the way. Like, go into the hard stuff. Thank you, Shonda Rhimes. Like, have that conversation right away. Live in your reality and know what is a big deal and what's not a big deal. Find the yay in every single day. I mean, that is, I want to do a fully entertainment walk today, because I'm learning a lot podcasting. So it'll be an entertainment walk for me, and just, just knowing what you need, I think is critically important. I just love you, Meaghan. Thank you so much for
Aw, thank
donating
you.
your time to this podcast and showing up for my community. You're like a voice of reason and very level-headed, and I just love you. So thank you
Aw,
for writing your
and
book.
I think it just comes with time too. Like I say that to everyone. Like growing up is so much fun, because you kind of like step into yourself, and it all just gets easier.
What advice do you have for moms, say young moms, maybe in their late 20s, early 30s, moms in their 40s and in their 50s? Like, what advice do you have for really having boundaries? Because one of the pieces of your puzzle is to learn to say no. And I think you can't really be as energetic as you are if you're spreading yourself too thin. So how did you cultivate that, and what advice do you have? What advice can we leave for the moms on this podcast about saying no and knowing when to say no and when to, like, because I feel like you say no so well and you say yes really loudly. So
Yes,
it's
that's
like,
exactly right. And that's the whole point. I think that everyone needs to be a relentless no sayer. And the key to that is first understanding what's important to you, right? Like what matters to you. Because if you're going to give away all your yeses, then you're not going to be able to say yes to what's actually important to you. You have to say no so that you can say yes to what matters. It's a form of self care and self preservation. If I said yes to counting box tops for the school PTO, well, then maybe I can't volunteer to do the carpool for soccer, which I actually love because I get to eavesdrop on all the boys and I get to hear what's really going on in school, right? Like, say no so you can say yes to what matters. And I think that starts by understanding your core values. For me, it's fun, family, and freedom. If it's not fun, it doesn't contribute to my family, and I don't feel a sense of freedom, then it's a no. It's a hard ass no.
I love that. Well, it's interesting because I signed up to be Bash's room mom, and I'm like, yay, I'm going to be so involved. I have so much time for you. And Chris signed up to be the PE aide, and he's like coming home with the stories. This kid, that kid, they were so funny. Like, Bashy said this, and I'm like, dang it, I signed up for the wrong thing.
Exactly. Well, that was a lesson hard learned for me. Only say yes to kid-facing activities, not mom-facing activities, because
Yeah.
I don't give a shit what other moms think of me, want from me. Like, I'm not here to impress other moms to do. No, I'm here for the kids.
Yeah.
What can I do that's kid-facing, that's going to immerse me in their world, give me a window into their day?
Yeah.
Kid-facing stuff only. I'm not going to count box tops. I'm not going to collect whatever, blah, blah, blah. Like, that volunteering for gym, doing a carpool. Carpool's the best thing that ever happened. They forget you're there. And the things that come out in carpool, I mean,
Noted. It's good stuff. And so I think the fun of the family is so easy. The freedom piece is hard. I mean, so how do you gauge freedom, and like, what does freedom mean to you in that?
so I learned during the pandemic when my life got turned upside down that I needed more freedom. I
Mhm.
didn't understand that I needed more freedom to be able to drive carpool, that I can't be in the city 5 days a week, that I can't have a butt in a chair in an office 5 days a week,
Thank you.
because that doesn't work for my family and my fun.
Mhm.
And so I added that value. when I got to see life a little bit differently, and now I won't give it back.
Yeah.
So if you need me to show up, I might not,
Yeah.
because it is now fun, family, and freedom non-negotiable.
Yeah. Well, I think it's an interesting thing to point out that like probably in your early 20s when you were first working as an editor or like writing articles that freedom piece wasn't probably in your control. But I think there's a sweet spot in which we as women don't show up for ourselves and put the hard boundaries on and don't think that we have the freedom because we're just people pleasing or we're thinking we can't stand up for ourselves and have those boundaries. But in reality, like you don't have them until you set them. And at a certain point, and I think it's a lot further along along the path when
Mhm.
women finally feel strong enough to have those boundaries, like they finally say, okay, no, I'm not going to be working those hours. I would say it probably took me like 6, 7, maybe even 8 years. And I've been doing this now 11 as my like second life career.
Yeah.
It, to finally be like, no, I don't take calls at 2:00 that so that when I pick up my
Yeah.
kids at school or I
I have
can't
it
pick up.
blocked out on my calendar. Like
Yeah,
there, like that's I have that school pickup, and I want to be able to be there for my kids. And the thing for me is it's like this perspective of like, I'll figure out ways to earn money. I'm a
yeah,
hustler, I'm scrappy, I'll figure it out. I can figure out how to make money. I can't figure out how to get time back with my family. I
yeah,
can't figure that out, right? That time is spent. And once those minutes are gone, you can never get them back. I
right,
can figure out how to earn more money, right? Like that's a renewable resource. Time is not.
right,
And that really, really resonates for me. I will absolutely never get that carpool back. It's gone, right? Wednesday soccer carpool, it's gone once today passes. But I could make a few bucks, right? I'll figure that out.
right.
Money is possible. Time, it's gone, it's gone.
You have to say no to have your time saved.
100%. And I also think it's really fascinating sometimes when you do establish those boundaries, how flexible people are willing to be when you're really good at what you do.
Oh my gosh. I mean, it's learned. It's learned. And I feel like what's interesting is when you have children, you have this like boundary excuse where you're like, "Oh my kids. Oh my kids." But like why weren't you using the boundary excuse of, "Oh my mental health. I work out at that time." And owning it. They're like, "Oh, sorry, I have another meeting." You're like, "No, I have a hot yoga class." And you
Yeah.
get to this place where you're like, "Well, I'm not sharing the hot yoga class because I actually told someone else I'm in a meeting." And it's like, "No, no,
Like,
no, no, no."
yeah.
Honesty, reality, own it.
Yep. I'm like, sorry guys, I get my eyelash extensions at that time. So don't make that meeting. Like
Great.
I don't care anymore. Like I have gotten to a place in my life where I'm like, you know what? I'll figure it out. No one's dying here and
Yes.
I'll figure it out.
Yes. Own it. Freaking own it and own your time so you can have your fun, your family, and your freedom.
Bam.
And you freaking rock. I'm gonna go cancel a bunch of things on my
Oh,
calendar and schedule.
please. Oh
I'm
my
just
God. That's so
kidding.
inspiring.
Yeah. I loved having you on today's podcast.
Yay.
And just seeing your face, where can people follow along? Where can they snag your book? Where can they plug their own fingers into a light socket?
So I'm on social media at Meaghan Meaghan Murphy. Um, and my book is available wherever books are sold. I do the Audible myself if you want to do I guess it would technically be a learning walk or an entertainment walk because I think I'm slightly entertaining on
You're
on
funny.
the audiobook.
Yeah. Mhm. Yep, I'll
um,
for that.
and that's really it. I'm kind of all over the place. I edit a magazine too. I still edit Women's Day, so we are destination celebration. We have a lot of fun. So
You're everywhere, but you still have the boundaries for yourself, and that's what's so awe-inspiring. So, thank you for being my awe for today. And
yeah.
for everyone listening, go log into your Audible app and listen to Meaghan on Your Fully Charged Life. Download that book. We'll see you next time.
Hey.